Welcome back. Welcome back. Today is Thursday, December 19th. Is that what it is? I just looked at it. I have a hard time keeping track of the days. All the time and everything's blending together for me. It's all every day is like a loop almost, except a little bit different each day. But yeah, it's December 19th and it's Thursday and it's about 2:20 in the afternoon. This video is essentially going to be a continuation from, if you've watched the videos, What is This Life? Part 1 and Part 2. So for you as a viewer, in order for you to proceed with this current video, there are some prerequisites that I encourage you to follow before you proceed with this video, right? So if you have not, get on my YouTube channel and go to like the most recent, at the current moment, it's one of the most recent videos where the title is What is This Life? Where this is all capital letters, but What is This Life? Part 1 and Part 2. Between those two videos, you're looking at almost 4 hours of information, so in order for this video to make sense for you, you'll need to have watched those first, because this video that I have no idea how long I'm going to be speaking. It's probably going to be a few hours combined, but in order for this video to make sense, you need to watch those other ones, because this video, and there might be a part 1 or part 2 or part 3, I'm not sure right now, but this video is going to be a further expansion, a further elaboration, a further articulation of everything I shared in the past video. So, because if you remember, there's nothing I can tell you in a short amount of time. Wow. Some really loud percussions. I don't know if the camera microphone picked that up, but it almost sounded like explosions in the background. Like full-on explosions in the distance. Heard a whole bunch of gunshots earlier today. I'm out in the desert right now. I'm out in no man's land, south of Sedona, and it's kind of been an interesting morning. Anyways, it just sounded like I heard explosions, some really deep bass. I don't know. Anyways, that kind of just took my train of thought off course for a moment. What was I even talking about? I'm gonna have to stop. Anyways, what I was talking about was, in order for this video to make sense for you, I already got that part, sorry. That totally took me off my train of thought, that loud noise that was out there. It was a long ways away. Anyways, this video is just a further expansion upon those other videos, because like I said, there's nothing that I can share with you in a short amount of time that will make everything make sense for you, right? There's so much, this whole, not just my story, but including your own life and everybody else's life and what this world is. In order to explain what this world is and what's beyond and all of that, it's very complex. It's a very complex system. There are a lot of moving parts involved, and in order for you, as the viewer, you have to learn everything in increments. Like I said with the other two videos, the previous two, What is This Life? I said in those videos that those videos specifically, I was essentially giving you the foundation, a foundation. It's a starting point. You have to start somewhere in order to make anything else make sense. You have to have your solid foundation first. And then from there, you can build and expand, and you can pick any given topic. You think about all the information you're given. You can pick pick any given topic out of all of it, and you can start expanding and building and elaborating on one given thing. And the next thing you know, you can find yourself in a multi-hour conversation about any given thing. Meaning for you as a viewer, if you're waking up to this reality in the context of you're starting to learn that everything you've been taught through your childhood, you're as a teenager and maybe as a young adult, or even as a later adult, an older adult, you at some point you discover that almost everything that you have been taught as far as what this world is and what's beyond and all that, you're learning that everything you've been taught is more or less a lie, a fabrication, an illusion of some sort. And you're learning about this dark side where there are bad people out there, and there's a whole lot of them, and they're all working together in order to twist your mind, to embed false thoughts, false ideologies, false belief systems, false perspectives within your brain, within your consciousness, which therefore alters your perception, your perspective of reality, where after a period of time, what you perceive reality is not what reality truly is. And so I'm saying, if you're somebody who is you are at some stage where you are just now awakening to all of this, or you've been in the process of awakening to all of this, and you've learned a bunch of stuff, but you haven't really figured out how to make sense of all of it. Well, this video that I'm making right now, I'm trying to help you make sense of all of it. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you're from. I don't know your life background. I don't know what your level of education is. I don't know what your age is. I don't know what you've been exposed to. I don't know what your occupation is, or if you're young, if you're a student, or if you're in a profession, or if you're homeless, or if you're in a bad situation. You could be anybody watching this video. And so I'm trying to speak to you from a neutral point of view. I don't know anything about you as the viewer. And I'm doing everything I can to try and help you guys make sense of what this reality is and what it's not. And I'm not saying I'm going to give you all of the answers. All I'm saying is I'm going to explain the general layout of what this life is. Because you have to understand, every single person out in the world, we've all walked a different life path. We've all been exposed to different things. We've all learned different things. It's just all of it. Everybody's on their own unique path, which means there's no copying. There's no, you can come across somebody who has good qualities, and I'm not saying you're stealing things from them, but you see them doing good things, and so you want to start doing good things because when you do those good things, it makes you feel better. That's the part as far as sharing amongst each other. We try to lift each other up and elevate each other. But there's other people who perceive that we have to compare each other and in a way where we got to figure out who's further ahead and who's behind, and who we can try sabotaging to make them beneath you as far as your progress. Everybody's trying to be ahead of one another. You got to understand there is no ahead or behind, and you as an individual, you are going through your own process of becoming aware of yourself and what this world is, and figuring out how to get your spirit, your soul, your mind, your internal self in realignment with God, with Heavenly Father, this high frequency, essentially where you came from before you were brought here to this reality, this third dimension, which we refer to as Earth, right? Before you were conceived here, you may have come from somewhere else. And I'm going to explain all this on the board, so don't worry, I'm going to be using that, but right now I'm just, this is kind of an introduction to let you know what direction we're about to head. Okay, so I'm going to be explaining, so say maybe you're somebody who came from somewhere else, and now, however you got here on Earth, You are undergoing a process of, you've spent a period of your life being completely unaware. You just accept reality for what it is, what you're based off of, what you've been told by the people you've been around as you've been growing up. Okay, so your perspective of reality is based off what you've been exposed to while you've been in a state of unawareness. Okay, then at some point in your life, it happens to everybody at different ages, but at some point in your life, you start asking questions that you have not necessarily been exposed to or taught through any other point in time in your life, where you might start be asking bigger questions like, what's after death? Is there anything beyond death? You might start contemplating the existence of God or not, the existence of the devil or not. You might start contemplating your own soul and who you are or you don't. But at some point in your life, you might start thinking about these things. And then at other points in your life, you might start becoming aware of what's going on around the world, and it's starting at in 2024, going into 2025, and especially these past 10, 20 years. Life itself has been gradually becoming scarier and scarier and more uncertain. People are having a much more difficult time looking into the future with any type of positive prospect. Just looking ahead into the future, 5, 10, 15 years, a lot of people see nothing but gloom and doom, because that's the trajectory that humanity is going. That's the direction as a whole that we're going. We're heading off, as a whole, humanity is heading towards this big giant cliff, and it's a matter of, if you as an individual wake up to what's going on and you stop following the herd, stop being a blind sheep, and you get away from these individuals who are running towards that cliff, and you get away from the herd, and eventually you go find everybody else who has also seen this, and we're over here, we're yelling at everybody, you guys stop, we're heading in the wrong direction, you're being misled right now. Somebody ahead of you is leading you towards the edge of the cliff, and they want to see all of you go off if you guys are that blind or ignorant or stupid or whatever. But you got others like myself, and I'm shouting, you guys stop, you gotta stop, you gotta start looking at what's going on. There's a cliff up there. It looks like it's not a cliff, but it's a descent. It's an illusion. The terrain is an illusion. It looks like you're running flat, but all of a sudden the terrain gives out, and then it keeps going flat again, so it looks like it's just straight. You guys are just running straight towards it. And so what I'm doing right now is trying to essentially break, wherever you're at in your life, and you're in a process of becoming aware that things in this world are getting really weird, and there's really no explanation for it, and you're really confused because there's so much information out there, and there's nothing for you to pinpoint on where it's coming from or what's even going on. Well, understand. Just slow down a minute. If you're one of those people who feel really confused about why the world is the way it is, understand that is what the enemy, the bad guys out there, they're trying to make you fall into that psychological state to where you're just confused. All the things that you have learned about, you just don't see a solution or anything on how to fix anything. So you're just in this state of hopelessness or despair, whatever. You just feel like there's no point to anything, and there's no point of trying. That's what the bad guys want you to feel. And until you can break free from that and understand, there are a lot of individuals out there who are fighting in their own ways, trying to wake people up in their own ways, people that are becoming very aware of what's out there to different capacities and different levels. Remember, there's so much out there that there's nothing that I can share with you in a short time span that can help you make sense of it all. Okay? And so with that said, that's where this dry erase board's coming in, and that's where these videos are coming in, because the things, in order for you to make sense, you kind of have to look at it you got to kind of adjust your perspective and look at things. You kind of got to just forget. I'm trying to give you just a blank, like a neutral perspective to operate from, where you as a viewer, no matter what you know, in the context of watching me speak, you have to be able to put aside what you know and then look at these other perspectives that I'm offering, and then just listen from a neutral position where you just pretend like you're going to school. You have to put yourself in a position as if you're a student, or you signed up for some class, or you signed up for some college course, and you're going into this course with a blank slate and you have no idea what you're about to learn, and you're going in there you're just going into this setting, this classroom setting where you are the student and you're just here to learn, and I'm here to share. And then by the time the video's over or the class is done, whatever you learn, you can compare what you have just heard with what you currently know, and anything that I shared with you that really resonates, just hits home for you, you can start using that with what you currently know. And not only can you break free from these dark energy illusions and misperceptions that you may have had, you can also take some of the things I share with you to empower you in different ways, to help elevate your spirit and your internal frequency and your vibration in different ways. And so that's what this is, this board. This is where we're going to be going. And so long as we're moving forward, every time whenever it is that I put up a new video, and you see a new video and you're like, okay, Brandon, share a new video. When you click on that video, you got to remember, okay, we're stepping into a classroom setting where, wherever you are, whoever you are, whether you're watching this video from your computer or your TV or a tablet or a phone, whether you're watching the video alone or with somebody that you know, this is essentially, it's almost like a one-on-one between you and I. I don't know who you are, but it's that you yourself are in a private setting where, you might have a few people around you, but you might literally just be in your own space. And it's almost like a one-on-one, except you can't talk back to me, but you can at least receive the information, and you just look at this as if you're a student and you signed up for some class, and you're here because you want to, and then whatever you learn during whatever video I share as we're moving forward, whatever you learn, you can take what resonates with you, and you can use it however it helps you in different ways. Okay? Not everything might not resonate with you. Some stuff might, some stuff might not, and that's okay. Not everything will. For some people, this thing I share here might resonate with them, but this doesn't. But for you, this resonates for you, and this doesn't. So, again, I'm speaking to a very broad audience. I don't know how many people are here or how many people have found my channel or anything, but I'm just trying to come from a neutral point of view. That way things can make sense for everybody, just for some people who are really deep. Well, some of the stuff that I share, it might just be confirmations or affirmations for you, but other people just understand. Some people may have never been exposed to any of the things I'm sharing, and so whatever you do know, you can use it just to, as affirmations for you, and then also understand you can use this to share with other people. So I'm going to stop here, and then we're going to start going on the board. Okay, so I got to reposition the tripod and all that. It takes a few minutes. Okay, guys. Here we go. Just remember, got to start slow, and all we can do is go one step at a time. And so you just got to remember, you got to take into account everything I shared in What Is This Life, Part 1 and Part 2. You got to remember that stuff. Because if you can't remember that, and I constantly just have to re-explain the things that I've already explained in order to refresh you and remind you, well, remember, that's just taking more time. That's the whole point of recording things, recording it all. So it's up to you to remember everything, because the further we go, the more complex and elaborate this whole thing is going to become. It's going to become like a giant multi-thousand piece jigsaw puzzle, a multi-dimensional jigsaw puzzle, or like we're going through a maze, or assembling a model. Okay, so we have to start with the foundation, and so I gave you the foundation. That was the whole point of those previous videos, okay? So in order for everything to eventually make sense, we're just going to be going one of these, it's a slide, one board at a time, okay? And so it's a matter of whatever you can retain and what you can remember, and slowly and little by little, bit by bit, one step at a time, eventually things will start, things will start making sense to you. Maybe. So for you, it might take you a little bit longer. Other people, you might catch on really fast, and then other people, it might take a little bit longer, but it's okay. All right, the whole point is just to share the whole thing, okay? So where do we go from where I left off, essentially? So there are some important parts to remember. You got God, okay? You got Jesus. And just remember, these are just general names that most people are familiar with. What their real names are on the other side, what their formal titles and names are, probably not God or Jesus. It's probably something else. Same thing, anybody who goes through, like any religious historians, you'll have different people claiming that God and Jesus is like Yahweh. You got Yahweh and Yeshua. So, and then you got other people who say it's a different names. They're different names. So I'm saying we need to put that aside. Whoever you are, if you just acknowledge, Heavenly Father, the grand creator, the one who created everything, you recognize him and his only begotten son, whatever his official name is, you just acknowledge that. You got God you got God, Heavenly Father, and his son, right? So, and then in modern day, 2024, in the last 100 years, people have grown up. You have grown up knowing God and Jesus. Those are just names that you're familiar with. And so that's what I'm sticking to. Whatever name you personally choose to use, as long as you know which energy you're speaking to, right? That's all that really matters. It's what's important is what's within you and the dialogue you're having, and who you're trying to communicate to. Are you trying to communicate with this high energy, the high realms, or are you trying to communicate with Satan, or Lucifer? If you remember, they've already been cast out of heaven, right? So you keep calling him Lucifer, but you got to remember he got stripped of all of his titles and all. He used to be God's favorite. Well, he lost all of that. So anybody who is looking up to Lucifer, well, you got to remember he's not Lucifer. He lost all of that. He got stripped of his name and titles, and now he's known as Satan, right? Or the devil, or the Baphomet, or Baal, whatever. He goes by different names, but it's not. You don't give him the name he had when he was up in the heavenly realms. Well, he got kicked out of there because he plotted a conspiracy to try killing God and Jesus and claiming the heavenly realm for himself. Well, it didn't work out the way he wanted, right? And then you just got to do your research, and you hear about the fallen angels and Mount Hermon, right? And you hear about those stories. Well, even Satan and Lucifer, they go by different names depending on which period of time you're looking at and what's your source. So these are just generic names. Just like these are generic names, but these are names that you can identify because you've heard about it. You might not know a whole lot about it, but you can at least identify the name as something that's malevolent, something that's not good, something that's potentially evil, right? And rightfully so, because he did some bad shit, right? So you got Satan and Lucifer, right? Okay, so this is a starting point. This is where we're kind of starting, and eventually you will see the direction we're going. Right now, you have no reason to know what direction we're going. Okay, so just as a student, as a neutral observer, just patiently observe and watch me paint this picture for you. Okay. So first and foremost, before we start talking about you and how you come into the equation and how you even got here in this reality, Earth, before I can even talk about that, we got to start establishing a few things first. First and foremost, first and foremost, need to make sure you've watched the videos, those previous videos. I've already talked about that multiple times, and I keep emphasizing it because it's very important. Next, once you're through that, once you have these characters in your brain and you acknowledge that, holy crap, they might be out there. Okay, they might be out there, right? At some point, maybe in your lifetime, maybe you will encounter these individuals. Just depends if you're blessed or not, or maybe later down the road when you get on the right path, some things will be revealed to you and then you'll know for a fact that they're real. But if you're a non-believer or you are in doubt, you just think this is all crazy talk, well, obviously it's going to be hidden from you because you don't believe. If you don't believe, then it's not going to be shown to you. You have to believe first, and then maybe at some point, if you become a believer and you start taking the correct steps to live a better life, and you're no longer doing messed up stuff, maybe at some point, everything in this realm might start revealing itself to you. At the same time, if you start going down the darker path and start doing more messed up stuff, whatever is included in this realm, this circle, that might start revealing itself to you. And it also might start revealing itself to you as if it's friendly, as if it's a positive thing, and it'll pull you towards it, and they want to pull you in and recruit you, even though you might not know what you're dealing with. You originally might perceive it as a good thing, that these guys are good. And then it isn't until later when you discover that you're on the wrong side of the fence, which might be some of you who are viewing this now. For some of you, it's not too late. Right now, this is a process of whoever you are, of becoming aware of what you are dealing with and what everybody is dealing with, and how you, as an individual, can navigate around it, can navigate through it, and eventually, maybe, potentially find your way home so you're no longer stuck here in this reality, okay? That's the whole point, and it takes time for me to explain all this and get us that far. But right now, this is our starting point. So if you acknowledge that these individuals exist, okay, and then you can start adding some more individuals. You got archangels, angels, guardian angels, you got guides, spiritual guides. I'll just say spirit guides, keep it simple. Guides. You got your ancestors. Your ancestors. Those who came before you. Those who have lived multiple lifetimes before you, those who have gone through their own trials, their own tests. They have gathered their own vast archive of knowledge, and they're around for different reasons at different times. And those individuals who are in the process of waking up, and they get on this path, it's a path, you want to call it. It's not a straight path, it's a spiral path, and all kinds of things. It goes all different directions. But the ancestors come in at different times to help people when they reach difficult positions in life and they're not sure which way to go. And if you're listening and you're tapped into all this stuff, well, you can, at some point, you can be communicated. Your ancestors can communicate with you through your dreams, through just spontaneous thoughts and energy that comes into your brain. All of a sudden, you're just thinking about something that you've never conceptualized before, but you're listening and you're like, and it's making sense and it's blowing your mind away, and you just don't know where it's coming from. Well, it could have something to do with these guys. You could see all types of signs and messages around you in the world. You could have things laid across your path where there's a certain phrase or a sentence or a word, or somebody says something to you that just resonates with whatever you're going through at the time. Well, if you're paying attention, this stuff might start making your hairs, it might make you get goosebumps and make the hairs on the back of your neck start tingling a little bit, okay? And then there's more. There's much more as far as different types of entities that exist within this side over here, okay? So you got all of these individuals, and there's hundreds or thousands or more, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of all of these. When you account for all of them, there's a lot, a shit ton. If you just think about how many, sorry for swearing, if you think about how many people exist on Earth, when you're talking about billions, okay, well, that's billions of people. And then when you start thinking about animals, and you start acknowledging that animals, all living beings, including animals, they have a spirit and they have a soul. It's like dogs. Okay, you acknowledge your dog has feelings. You acknowledge your dog has emotions. You acknowledge your dog has its own intelligence. Well, maybe your dog has a spirit and a soul, just like you. And then when your dog dies, your dog goes somewhere. Your dog's spirit goes somewhere. Okay, so that concept probably applies towards all living things. Birds, mammals, insect. I don't know about insects. Maybe insects too. Maybe insects have their own. Insects have their own intelligence. If you really study insects, they have their own intelligence. They're pretty smart. They're just a different sort of intelligence than you. I'm saying everything that's alive in this world has some type of spirit or soul that gives that thing a power to. It gives that thing a motivation and a drive to exist and go about its life and thrive in its own way, if it can. Right? So once you start acknowledging all this stuff, okay, well, where did it all come from? Did it just magically come out of nowhere? Or was it all designed? If you take your human body, a human body, or the body of a dog, or the body of a cat, or a body of some wild animal that you can just think up of, and start looking at its anatomy and all of its organs and its skeletal structure and its muscles and its tendons and then its brain and its eyes, everything about the animal or the human, and you're telling me that it was not created, it was not created by some type of intelligent design, that it just magically came out of nowhere based off the Big Bang Theory, where it's all a product of random chance? Well, if you can get that out of your brain, where everything is created and not just random chance, well, you're going in the right direction, right? You're heading in the right direction. Okay? So just acknowledge this. There's a whole lot, okay? There's a whole lot on this side. And then at the same time, remember 33% were kicked out of heaven, right? These higher realms, these higher dimensions, these places that are not here on Earth, it's somewhere else. Whatever it is, wherever it is, whoever lives there currently now, a long time ago, this individual used to live there, right? He used to live there. He used to be like the right hand or left hand of God himself, right? Until God created Jesus, until Jesus came into the equation, right? But Satan, he became jealous and envious, and he just had it in his idea where if he had the power, if it was up to him and he could make things happen as he wanted to, and God wasn't standing in the way, well, then Satan had this idea like, oh, I can make a better world. I can make a world that's so much better than what God's created. I can make everybody that's here, I can make them love me more than they love God and Jesus, right? So he has this in his brain, and that's why he did what he did, right? So, and then I told you there's these other realities, right? I'm not ready to go there yet, but I told you there's like the high realm, and then you have Earth down here, and when everything, there's things going down on Earth, and there's also things going on in the high realm simultaneously. And then when everything went down, well, that created just this just giant chain effect where everything got disrupted. It all got disrupted. God didn't die, but it created this chain of events that began, and we're still going through it right now. It's not over yet. But with whatever happened up there, God didn't die. Jesus didn't die up there. They're all, you got the archangels, the guardians, the spirit guides. You got all different types of angel warriors. They got it handled up there, right? But that doesn't mean the conflict was over. because Satan did the whole thing that he did because he thought that he could, not only did he think he could get away with it, but he thought he could create a better reality than what God had created. And Satan, Lucifer, and you got to think about 33%. Lucifer had convinced them somehow that God was not a good person and was everything God was doing as far as all the different laws and rules and how things were operating up there. They all, I'll put the fallen angels here just so so you have something to look at. So amongst I'll just say 33% too. 33%. Sorry, that's a weird first three. But amongst all of them, it wasn't just, Satan, Lucifer is the one who convinced this 33% to get on his side, and then they conspired and did what they did. But after, they failed, and then once these 33% were rounded up, well, what is God just going to is he just going to execute all of them on the spot? Or had Satan made a valid argument amongst everybody? So you got the 2/3 here and the 1/3 here, but Satan is speaking to everybody, right? And he's saying that he can create a bit better reality than God. So he's essentially publicly calling out God and challenging God, telling him that he can create a better reality, and everybody, given enough time, everybody would love his reality more than they love what they have currently, okay? So God, is kind of like a challenge, and everybody was aware of the challenge. So God accepted the challenge, but God was not going to give Satan dominion of the heavenly realms, right? He's not going to give him dominion of the heavenly realms, because that belongs to God, and everything that exists up there is there for a reason, and all the structure, laws, barriers, everything that's up there is there for a reason. It's all there, and God made it that way for a reason. And that's what Lucifer was upset about, because God wouldn't listen to anything he said, because God could see Satan's ulterior motives behind taking down these barriers. Oh, God's like, well, if we take down these barriers, all of this bad stuff is going to happen. Okay. So the part of the challenge was, okay, well, all of you are kicked out of heaven, but if you really do believe that everything you believe, you think that you can create a better reality, and everybody will love that reality more than what's actually up here. Okay, so this is your reality. So essentially Earth had already been, had already been going down on Earth. Earth is essentially like a clone or a copy of this higher reality, but there are tweaks and variations, and the physics and the laws and everything is completely different here than it is there, but it's very close. There's a lot of magical powers and things that you can't even conceptualize up there, but down here, all of that is taken away. It's all more raw. Everything's more raw and just real deal stuff, where you have every action that you take has a reaction. That scared me. So I'm saying that, like, this reality is it was close. It's similar to this other reality, but it's different. I can't even articulate the differences, but it's different, and that's just all you really need to just accept right now. That's all you need to know right now. Just accept that there's another reality, a different reality above us, and this reality that we're currently in, that you're currently in, that's where your focus needs to be. Your focus doesn't need to be there right now. We're focusing on right here. We're all here. I'm here with you in this third dimensional reality. It's close to the other reality, but it's not the same. And there's a barrier, the firmament, the dome, your atmosphere, that is preventing either side from interacting with each other. But that doesn't mean that there's not ways in or out. Okay, there are ways in and out, but it's only through, you can only come and go through God, bypassing your tests essentially, or just something through the hand of God. He's the one that allows you to come and go. All right. So I'm saying this big test, or this challenge that Satan had given everybody, everybody who was in attendance after this giant conspiracy to overthrow God and Jesus and the heavenly realms, and they failed. Well, again, Satan challenged God in front of everybody, saying he could do it better. Okay, well, God accepted the challenge, but he didn't give them access. He didn't give them access to the higher realm. We'll just say this is earth. And keep it simple, earth, and we'll keep it easy as heaven. Okay? You can call it the high realm, God's kingdom, right? God's kingdom. And just understand, there are more layers out there, but this is just the general layer. Like, if you general layer where if you pass your test on Earth, the next layer up, the next place that you would go to, should you pass your tests and be vibrating at the right frequency, you would be returning here. But there's also other layers depending on your level of frequency and the things that you have accomplished in your life and what you've gained access to. Like if you're somebody who's been around for a while, you're an old soul, and you've lived multiple lifetimes on Earth, and you've been up here for a long time, and you've gone through a long series of different tests and trials and tribulations and stuff through different lifetimes. Well, you have probably earned access to these other places, and they do exist. But again, that's not the focus of the conversation. The conversation is about this right now. For now, okay? I'm not saying not later, but right now. Okay, so these individuals, they have been cast down here, right? And so Satan, he's no longer Lucifer, right? But he does go by different names, and I'm just using Satan as it's a term and a name that everybody identifies with. Okay, so Satan's dominion. All right, so the downside is for all of the inhabitants of the earth, the downside is you just had a bunch of shitbirds kicked out of heaven, and now they're down here with you. So for you as an individual, if you're not somebody who has originally been from here, you're not somebody who agreed to come down here, and you were, whoever you are, your spirit on the inside, and including your flesh, you were conceptualized within this realm. You were conceived within this realm, and you may have never actually been here before. Okay, but there's also people who are originally from here. Some people who have signed up, they signed some type of spiritual contract, a soul contract or something. It's all through Heavenly Father himself, where they have agreed to come down into this world, be conceived through a mother and a father. Your mother conceives you out of her womb. You're born in a natural way. Some people have agreed to come into this world through that way. And when you do come into the world through your mother's womb, the majority of people, not everybody, there are some individuals who don't, but the majority of people, whatever memories and lifetime experiences you have had up here, all of your memories are wiped the day that you were born. The day you're born, all of your memories are essentially wiped, where it's kind of like you go through this, however long it takes, but when you're first born, you might know where you are, but as now that you're in the world, after a period of days, weeks, maybe a few months, you start going through this thing called, it's essentially kind of like dream amnesia, where you might know where you're at, and that that's not where you're supposed to be. You're aware of this, but it's kind of like a dream where you're aware of it, but you can't touch it. It's like there's this thin veil. It's like this thin veil slowly falling over your conscious mind, where little bit, as time moves forward, days or weeks, eventually as an infant, you literally forget about all of this. It's just like a dream, and then at some point, as an infant, you start perceiving this reality as the reality, okay? And so that's part of this test or agreement. When you agree, that's what you're going to be undergoing, okay? There's also individuals who, when they are born into this world, they know exactly where they're at, and they retain those memories for whatever reason. I'm not saying it's a black and white answer. I'm saying there are circumstances where some individuals, when they're born in a natural way through a mother and a father, through natural conception. But when they're born, they retain their consciousness, and yet they're very vulnerable as an infant. But as they become a toddler and a young child, as soon as they develop their motor skills, they excel in life. They just, whatever they do in life, they can be considered brilliant or very highly motivated or anything, any combination of these characteristics where somebody just excels very good at what they do. Okay, so there are circumstances where you have people who are from here who have literally come down to Earth as a God-appointed mission. They came down to Earth for a specific reason, and for whatever reason, God allowed them to retain their memories. But not everybody. Not everybody. Some people, some individuals who originally signed up to come down here, yeah, their memories were all wiped. And a lot of people, they have gone through the majority of their life asleep. Essentially, they perceive this is the reality and that's it, and they fall into Satan's illusions. You got these guys down here with you, and they're putting out all these different schemes and ploys. They're manipulating your mind, giving you these false indoctrinations and false religions, just everything you can think of that's bad in this world. Well, a lot of it it's originated from all of them. And after you just think we're in 2025 and how long they've been here, when did they originally show up? Well, that's a big question. When they originally showed up, you can probably find that answer somewhere, but at the top of my head, I have no idea. I'm not even going there. But I'm saying at some point they showed up here, and then everything that's happened since then. You look at the state of the world right now. You look at the state of the United States. You look at the state of Canada and Mexico and South America and Europe and Eastern Europe and Asia, Japan and China, all of it. And you look at the state of the world and how close we are to going an all-out World War III, where everybody's pretty much just killing each other. A lot of it has a product to do with these individuals and everything just getting completely out of hand. Okay? So just understand, he has had dominion over this realm ever since their arrival. God gave him the dominion, the power and authority. So Lucifer, they're down here. Well, Lucifer, Satan, he has like a superpower. He can do things that nobody else can do. And and that has enabled him to get away with everything that he's gotten away with. So you think about all the bad stuff that has happened in the world. Here today, last year, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 100 years ago, as far back as you want to go. Think about all the bad stuff that has happened. All the wars, all the genocides, all the famines, all the millions of people, hundreds of millions, billions of people who have died collectively over all of these years. Well, it's because he's been running the show and he doesn't really know what he's doing, and he is so obsessed with control and ego and power. So if you think about all the movies, Star Wars, you have the Jedi and the dark side. You have the good side and the dark side. Well, yeah, the dark side, yeah, it has a whole lot of powers. There's a lot of powers that are included if you join ranks with them. But you'll lose your soul, and you just start doing really bad, messed up stuff until eventually you entirely lose everything that you used to be, and all you are is just pure evil. And then you are no longer associated with any of this. You don't even acknowledge it. You're just pure evil. And that's what they've been doing. And so this earth has evolved in the way that it has because of, he did everything that he did up here, which got him kicked out. Well, he didn't learn any of his lessons. Rather than learning any of his lessons, he just he did the things that he wanted to do up here. God gave him, do whatever you want down here. You got 3,000 or 6,000 years to make this place a paradise for everybody. And you have to make that's part of the conditions. Everybody who lives here, they have to love you. They have to love you. They have to love you more than what was currently up here before all this shit had originally went down. All this stuff that went down a long time ago when everything was essentially, perfect. Everything was operating and functioning in a perfect way. I'm not saying that there weren't flaws. I'm not saying that there weren't things that are, people going through their own personal stuff. There weren't challenges and things. That all exists up there. But as a whole, everything that exists is all perfect. It's as it needs to be for everybody to live their life in a healthy, prosperous way. That's just that's just more or less, right? But everybody has, everybody's going through their own process of learning and maturing, and that's just like down here. Just like down here, it's the same up there, okay? And so being down here, and you're looking around at the world and why it is the way it is, and if you're somebody who, for whatever reason in your lifetime, if you have gone your life not believing in God, or at some point you did believe in God, but then you turned your back on God because you're looking at all of the bad stuff going on around here, and you see all the children who are suffering, all the children who are being murdered, all the children who are involved in the child trafficking, and then you can get even bigger. Not just children, but young adults, teenagers. You got teenagers and young adults who are caught up in the sex trafficking, human trafficking, and it goes bigger. It doesn't even matter what your age is, but you're caught in the human trafficking racket, and then so you get all upset about that because you have every right to be upset about that. It's terrible, but you're blaming God for it, and you're saying God doesn't exist, and if He does exist, that He's evil for allowing all of this. Well, you have to understand right now, Satan has had dominion over the earth. And God has been watching everything that has happened and is happening and is going to happen. And He's very fucking angry with this individual and with these individuals for everything that they've been doing. God, again, there's a clock. There's this hourglass. This hourglass. I'm terrible drawing the hourglass, but originally when it started, all the sand was up here. Right? Originally when Satan came down, he's like, okay, you have 3,000 or 6,000 years, right? And from day one, there's just been this constant little trickle coming down, right? And then as all this time has been going on, you think about all the bad stuff that has been happening. God, in a normal state, either God or the archangels or your guardian angels, you would have so much different support that would intervene with all of this messed up stuff that's happening as it's happening. They would. But right now, because this individual publicly challenged everybody, saying he could create this perfect paradise better than this, and everybody would love him more than they love these two. Okay, well, God is essentially hands off. He's hands off. He doesn't mean He's not watching, doesn't mean He's not aware of what's going on. Doesn't mean He's gone. Doesn't mean He's dead. He's watching. Okay, you have dominion, so all the messed up, fucked up stuff that's happening here, well, you did it. You did it. You did all the stuff up here, which got you kicked out of here, and now you're doing all the things you wanted to do, and now everything's all out of control. Even him, he can't even control it. It's out of his control. He can't even trust his own rankings. The people that he has included amongst his ranks, from highest rank to lowest rank, he doesn't trust any of them. He treats them all like they're a bunch of idiots. Anything that goes wrong, he's always blaming everybody else, but he can never look at his own faults. He always blaming somebody else. So that's what you're dealing with, okay? And God is watching this whole thing going on. And the bad thing is, you're here, I'm here, we're all here, right? We're all down here. All of us, whoever you are and you're watching this, and you consider yourself down here on earth, okay? At least you're grounded, you know where you're at, right? You're on earth, right? But again, there's no reason to blame him. If you think about this is where you can start looking at the Bible, and you think about, this is where if you have knowledge in the Bible, that's an advantage for you, but there's people who don't have knowledge in the Bible for their own different reasons. That's fine. It's not a criticism. But I'm just saying, if you have knowledge in the Bible and you're aware of all the different names and characters through the Bible and all these different stories, and you've heard about all these prophets and messengers that have been sent from heaven by God to come down to earth during these different periods of time where they have warned, they go into some empire or some kingdom and they go meet up with some pharaoh or some king or something, and they tell them that they're, you just tell them your whole city is turned away from God, and you guys are doing this, and all these bad things are happening around you. Can't you see why it's happening? If you guys don't change your ways, then you guys are going to be destroyed, because what you're doing is outright terrible. It's outright terrible, and he's getting very angry because you guys are not getting the picture. And what you're doing is long term going to lead to this entire earth going the wrong direction. So you look at stories from the Bible, and you hear about these places on earth at different periods of time that essentially got wiped out. You hear about the Noah's flood, right? And the mud flood, different cataclysms. Well, a lot of it has to do with this individual and these individuals being down here, and things in this world getting so out of hand, so corrupt and broken, that there's essentially no way for this earth to continue moving forward in any way whatsoever without just everything burning. So that's when God steps in, and he essentially wipes out, sections of the earth, different populations, wipes out parts, and then at other times wipe out the whole thing. Everybody who's here in your spirit, well, you got this big barrier right here. Okay, you got this big barrier, and you might have a portal or something up here. The sun might be a portal. I don't know, but you have different portals, and you have these individuals down here. So I'm just saying, if the entire population gets wiped out, well, because this clock is still counting down, everybody was making their choices. Well, if you're somebody who was not vibrating at a certain frequency, and you had not rediscovered God and Jesus, and you've somehow, at whatever period in time you found, you retained your spirit, and you were always looking up high, and you were not participating in the stuff going on here, well, if the entire population is wiped out, but you were vibrating at a certain frequency, your spirit might make it through this barrier, and next thing you know, you're home, okay? But at the same time, if you're not vibrating at a very specific frequency or higher, well, you hit this barrier, it's a metaphor and analogy. You're not vibrating at the right thing, so essentially, the only place for you to go is to eventually go through this light, this portal or something. And once you hit the portal, eventually you are reborn back into this world as a little guy. You come back as a little guy, and then all your memories are wiped again. So you've been a lot of people, many people, not everybody, no two people have the same answer. Remember that. So you as a viewer, your answer is different than my answer. My answer is different from anybody else, okay? So I'm saying your answer is not going to be the same. But I'm saying, if for whatever reason you have never reached the required frequency and you never broke through, well, this whole period of time, whether 3,000, 6,000 years, and where are we at currently on that time span? Well, I have a feeling we're getting close to the end, but I'm saying for however long you've been here, so long as you have not broke free and have not reconnected with this frequency before death, you have to be operating at this God frequency, this high frequency before you die. You have to realize that God exists, that Jesus exists, and all of this, Native Americans, they have their own perspective on all of this, but it's essentially the same thing. They have different names and stuff, right? But it's all the same thing. But essentially, you have to be operating at a certain frequency to get out, and there's a lot of people who have been, they spent a large portion of their life following these guys, right? I had to change the battery. Sorry, there's a little bit of a pause. What do I do with my pen? Oops. Sorry, I lost. Oh, it's in my pocket. So what I'm saying is, there's a lot of individuals who have not reached the required frequency to go through this barrier. So you as an individual, if you feel like you're an old soul, and you, for whatever reason, however old you are, but for whatever reason over the course of your lifetime, there's just been this feeling as if you've been here before, and you might have lived life before, not necessarily in this time frame or this time span, as far as in the 1900s, but you might have feel like you've lived different lives at different periods in time. Well, that might not be far from the truth. You might be somebody who has been here for a while. Okay, for whatever reason, you just haven't found, for whatever reasons, you haven't broke through this. and you've been stuck here in Satan's dominion. Okay? So every time you live your life, you're born into this world. You might know where you're at the day that you die. You know, the day that you die, your spirit leaves your body, and then all of a sudden you're somewhere else. You're in a different frequency. You're still here, stuck within the confines of this, but you're still within you're still stuck here, but you're not here in what you consider this reality, this third dimension. You go into the spirit realm, but you're still stuck in the confines of this dome or firmament, where at some point, you witness this stuff you've never experienced during this lifetime. You're like, holy cow, this whole spiritual world exists. Wow, it blows my mind. And then at some point you encounter one of these guys, some of these guys, or you might encounter these guys in this other place. And then, I'm not saying it's a different answer for everybody, but eventually at some point, if you've been stuck here, at some point you might go through some portal, something that essentially respawns you back into this third dimensional reality known as here on Earth, right? You're here, and you have a new set of parents. You have a new mom and dad. And the day that you're born, yeah, you might be aware of where you're at, but then again, you go through the process of forgetting everything. Sorry, he's making too much noise. But you go through this process of forgetting everything again. And then the next thing you know, you perceive this reality as the real reality. And you don't even conceptualize this anymore because you've forgotten again. Your memory got wiped. But remember, every time your memory gets wiped, well, whatever memories you had from your previous life, those memories are essentially stored. They're stored somewhere else. So every time you die, all of those memories come back to you, and then you realize where you're at and how many times you've been alive. And then at some point you get put back into the thing, and then you forget again. So it can be a nightmare. I'm telling you, it can be a nightmare. For some people, it has been a nightmare. You're stuck in this perpetual cycle of being stuck here, called reincarnation, There's different words for it, but yeah. And then, once you come back as a toddler, you have to go through the whole process again of trying to figure out who you are, where you are, and how to get out. And if you look at where we're at today in 2025, it's not easy because these individuals who they've pretty much infiltrated everything that you perceive out in the world has been infiltrated by these individuals, and they are controlling it, including church and all religions and church, including the Church of Christ. Churches, any church that says that they are all about Jesus Christ, well, a lot of it in today's time, all of those institutions are owned and controlled and being operated by what you would call wolves in sheep's clothing. They're serving these individuals, and so all the churches that we have out there around the world, and they're collecting your money through tithing. You keep making these payments. Every time you go to church on Sunday or Saturday, and you're giving the pastor or somebody who's walking around with a collection basket or a collection jar, and you're throwing in your money, and then that money ends up somewhere. Well, it's these individuals who own all of it and who are controlling all of it, and they're just using Jesus. They're using Jesus's name to manipulate everybody to believe that they're doing the right thing. And so it gets really deep and sadistic and gross, because once you become aware of that, and you start looking at what church is today and how church today, it's like a multi-billion dollars per year, the amount of money they make, amount of revenue they make through donations and tithings and everything, when it's all combined together, and they don't pay taxes on it. And then you start looking at all the people around the world who are suffering, all the children and families and mothers and fathers out there who are doing everything they can to survive. And you got the churches who have these giant, the churches and the priests, the clergy, everybody involved. A lot of them, you got some people that are living in multi-million-dollar mansions and driving $100,000 cars and stuff. It's all just, you can see what I'm saying. They're just using these names to make all types of money. And again, what is money? Money is a form of energy exchange, because you have to work X amount of hours per day in order to receive money to go buy the stuff that you need to survive. So it's a form of energy harvesting. So these guys are harvesting your energy. They're occupying your mind with all types of distractions, right? Just like, what's that Roman saying? Give them bread and circus and they'll never revolt. It's this thing where they just, they keep everybody in a state of being asleep. Meanwhile, they are pulling the strings to everything. And again, they're guiding right now, in 2025, they're guiding everybody off the edge of a cliff. They want everybody to be heading towards this cliff, and if they can get you to fall into their traps and schemes and not break free, and somehow you die before you wake up to this, and you die, well, the next thing you know, you're not going to be vibrating at the required frequency. So the next thing you know, you get put through this whole process again, and then however close you got, you might have been close. But they got you because you weren't paying attention for whatever reason. You put your guard down. All right? That's why you have guardian angels, and that's part of their responsibility is to help you. That's why when you wake up, because this clock is perpetually counting down, and eventually this is going to become full, right? This is going to become full, and eventually this becomes empty. His time is running out, so he's out of time, right? Out of time. And the question that everybody wants to know, well, when is that? When is his time? When is Satan's time going to expire? And when is all this messed up stuff that's happening around the world going to end? Well, not even me. I can't even answer that. The only one who knows when it's time, is him, Heavenly Father. Only him. He's the only one. Nobody knows when it's time, and that's part of the test. For you as a viewer, for every single occupant here on Earth, nobody knows when the time is, except for him, right? Which means, as for you, if the whole purpose of being down here, like if when you wake up to this and you want out of this, you're tired, you don't want anything to do with this anymore, and you want to return home, or if you've never even been there before and you just don't want to be here and you want to go here because this sounds way better, well, the only way for you to get there is to acknowledge his existence. First, you got to acknowledge his existence, and then you got to go through a process of earning their trust. You have to earn their trust. They do not have to earn your trust, because all of this has existed. All of this has existed before you even existed. Before you were even part of any of this, all of this shit has been going down, which means these individuals, they do not answer to you. You have to earn their trust, and by earning their trust, you as an individual are going to be going through some very vigorous, some very challenging obstacles throughout your entire life. Your lifetime, your whole life is the test. And depending which way you go, by the end of your ride, determines whether you get to go home or if you got to do it again. Okay? It just depends on you. Okay? And as you are doing this, remember, you got all of these individuals. There's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of them. And you got a whole bunch of these individuals. But what I'm focused on right at the moment, these individuals, they are coming and going as they want to. I mean, essentially, God, he's given them instructions and orders and objectives and different missions. Everybody has their own task and assignment, and some of them are just have, whether there's portals or gateways, there's different ways to come to breach, to get through this, through the firmament. But the only way to get through the firmament is through him, is through this. You have to have it has to be sanctioned through him to go in and out. And so, but at the same time, you constantly have reinforcements, different people coming and going. They do what they need to do, intervene on some type of messed up stuff going on Earth, and then the next thing you know, they go back up here. All right, so there's this constant traffic coming and going from here. But at the same time, these individuals, they're also in here, and they're doing a bunch of messed up stuff too. And this is where you can start, this is where you start learning things about demons. You know, demons, witchcraft, craft, sorcery, you know. So these are all like real things, you know, this dark magic, it's not like a make-believe thing that just comes from, you know, the movies or TV shows. Well, the movies and TV shows are more or less kind of showing you stuff that exists in different, you know, in different ways. Not to take everything as literal, but it's concepts and ideas. Some things are real deal things. And so you got you got all of this that belongs with this crowd. And so you got, yeah, it's like you have the dark side versus the light side. You know, like you got the Jedi versus the Sith. The Jedi versus the Sith Lords. You know, where does the movie Star Wars even come from? What story are they even trying to tell you? Same thing with Lord of the Rings. Same thing with like Harry Potter. You know, you got the TV series Wheel of Time. You got Game of Thrones. You have all these different movies that are essentially telling the same story. And a lot of these movies, they're almost, you know, they're taking some stories straight out of the Bible, but they're, you know, it's all twisted. The characters change, the stories change. Everything's all essentially the same story, warnings, messages. But most of the people down here, because they've been lied to for their entire life, they don't, you know, they have no concept of this, or maybe they have a little bit, but they haven't really been told what's really going on. And so, you know, as far as what they perceive this world is, they're confined to this. That's their perception of reality, is this. And if you want an example, pretend you're somebody who has a fish pond. You know, say you have your own house, and in your backyard you have a pond. You've dug out the earth, you made a pond for yourself, you filled it up with water, and eventually you went and bought a bunch of tadpoles. And you threw those tadpoles in, or those little baby fish, you know, little tiny baby fish spawn, you threw them into the water. And, you know, you just didn't know if they live, they live. If they don't live, they don't live. And then before you know it, after a period of time, maybe a year or 2 years, next thing you know, you have a whole bunch of fish inside that pond. Well, if you can put yourself in the perspective of the fish, that pond is the entire reality. From that fish's perspective, that is reality, is in the confines of that pond. Whatever dimensions are in the pond, however deep the pond is, however wide or long the pond is, that's its reality. But if you could somehow pull the fish out of the water and talk to it, and then point the fish at the world beyond itself, that fish would be blown away, because all of a sudden it perceives, holy cow, the world, there's a lot more out there. Well, that's essentially what we're dealing with. You here on Earth, whatever your perception of Earth is and how big it is, and you are essentially stuck in this reality that you perceive as reality. And until you acknowledge that there's more out there, and that God exists, that Jesus, you know, God has a son. God has a son. Just like everybody has a family, well, God has a son. The question is whether God has a wife. That's the big mystery, and that's not the point of the discussion right now. But God has a son, just like other people. Just like some of the people out there who are listening, you have your own children, and some of you have your own sons and daughters. Well, is it too hard to believe that God would have his own son, and that God would teach his son everything he can possibly teach him in order to make things easier for the management, and, you know, making sure everything's operating as it needs to, not only up here but down here too? And that's when you hear about God sending his only begotten son down to earth. And because Mr. Guy right here, Satan and his fallen angels, have had dominion of it, once they found out about Jesus and found out where he was at, and that he was sent by God, well, what did they do to him? They crucified him, right? They crucified him. They put him up on a stake and, you know, did all that thing. And then that's where everybody has learned about the name Jesus and the story of Jesus and what he did as far as sacrificing his own life for everybody's sin. Okay, and then you've heard about, well, at some point, everybody who is tuned into the Bible and all that, well, you've heard about Jesus coming back. And then when he comes back, I'm talking about, you know, after this clock ends, when he comes back, well, everything that's going on right here, well, that's where you've learned about the rapture and all the stuff that follows the rapture and all that. Well, all of that is currently going on right now. How else would I have learned all this stuff, right? You know, all this stuff, I've learned it through, I'm not even going there right now. I've learned it through some pretty crazy ways. But this is what you're working with right now. So who you are, right here, you got to understand everybody down here on Earth. Excuse me, try not to burp. Everybody on Earth, you don't even know who they are. People that you perceive as your friends might not be your friends. People that you perceive as your enemy might not be your enemy. People that you perceive to be awake might not be awake. People who you perceive to be, who have figured it out, might not even be close. Okay, so the important part is for you to focus on getting your shit figured out. Stop worrying about what other people are thinking, what they are saying, whatever judgments they have about whatever you got going on right now. If you're going through a very difficult process of waking up to this world and everything is not as you thought it was, and everything's twisted and fucked up, well, you gotta understand there's nobody out there who you can talk to who is going to explain anything to you and make everything make sense to you. When it comes down to it, you have to figure it out for yourself. And all I am doing right now is offering my perspective to try and help this whole thing make sense. That's all I'm doing, is just offering my perspective, letting you know how I'm operating from. You know, this stuff, all of this stuff, it's in my brain. I don't even have to think about most of this stuff. It's just part of how I operate. I'm aware of all this stuff. I'm aware that they exist. I'm aware that they're evil and they do very bad things, which is why I have gone through all the things that I have gone through over these last 7 years. All the fucked up stuff I've gone through is a product of these individuals not wanting me to share this information with you. If you're not one of these individuals and you're somebody that originally came from here, but you're down here for whatever reason and you have forgotten, or if you're just somebody who's been trapped down here for a while, just stuck in this recycling reincarnation trap that he has created, you know, well, all I'm trying to do is just help you see what's up, man. All the stuff that I've been going through, it's because they don't want me to tell you guys. They don't want me to help you break free. They don't want me to help you see that this exists. Not only see that it exists, but you have a whole lot of help. You have a whole lot of help. You have a whole lot of backup. You have reinforcements waiting to help you. But the key is, if you don't believe, and you're currently, for whatever reason, all you're doing is spending time around people that are low energy, and they're, some of them are open Satanists, some of them are open devil worshippers. The people that you're running around with are doing bad things and they're hurting other people. You're hanging around with people that you know are lying, people that you know are manipulating, people that you know are stealing. Anybody involved with this low toxic energy, these things, if you do these bad things, they come with negative karma. If you're running around with this energy that does nothing for you but generate negative karma, well, you're not going to have any help from them. You'll just be getting nothing but energy telling you to continue doing these messed up things, because that's the energy you've chosen to spend time with. That's the energy you've chosen to refuse to walk away from. And so, yeah, they'll give you all the tools and vices and everything you need to continue going down deeper and darker into the abyss, where you completely lose yourself to a point where there's nothing that even God can do to redeem you, because you just full on lose your shit and you just do evil, wicked stuff and kill people and murder people, all kinds of bad stuff, right? All right. I have 20 more minutes in me today, and then I gotta stop talking and go take him for his evening walk, because it's gonna be dark in about an hour. So I'm gonna speak for about 20 more minutes, and then that's gonna be it for this video. And then whatever speaking I do from here forward, it'll go into a next video, just so you know. Okay, so with that, with everything I've shared, I wiped this down. I'm just gonna try and help you with something. So right here, just imagine this magical bar. Right here, you say good, evil. Right, and then this is, the middle. If that's close enough to the middle. So when you are born into this world, you just say you as an infant. You as an infant, when you come into this world, you're essentially right here, okay? You kind of start right in the middle where you have no concept of anything. You don't have anything or the other, right? But, so this is where it can get interesting. So you're born into this world, and for you as the spirit within, you are vulnerable, and there's nothing you can do to decide where you go because you can't even walk and you can't even talk, right? So whoever's arms you're in, it's up to them to take care of you, or they abandon you and let you die. Okay, that's the reality of it. Okay, but let's just say let's just say when you're born into this world, you have a mother and a father, and they're both together, and we can just say that they are married. It doesn't matter if they're married or they're not married, but I'm just saying you have a mother and a father, right? So we'll just draw these right here. Your mom and dad. Your mom. So give one hair. I always gotta give one hair so you can differentiate. And give it a little skirt. And you got your mom and dad. So, before you can even start figuring out what your life is going to be like, the question is, well, it doesn't really matter what age your parents are, but I'm saying at the time of your conception, the question is, is your mom and dad on this bar? Are they good parent? Have they been good people? They've been living their life in a good way. You know, they have good morals. They've been responsible with their life. They do everything in their capacity to do good things, positive things. They don't go out there trying to hurt people. They don't go out there stealing, they don't go out there creating problems. And then, or have your parents been up to mischief? Whatever that even means. Have they been up to mischief, been doing things that are not necessarily good, low vibrational stuff? So let's just say, for example, just a random example, pulling a random example out of the hat. It could go either way. It doesn't really matter. Let's say when you were born, your mom was like right here, right? Your mom was right here. And your dad, he might be even deeper. He might not be good. So if you think about karma, I'll give her a leg. I don't know. She might need another leg. So as they've lived their life, if they've done a bunch of bad stuff, well, if you believe in karma, you've heard the expression, we reap what we sow. Well, if they've spent their life doing more negative things than positive things, well, they probably have some type of negative karmic energy field that follows them. Wherever they go, they have a negative energy field, like a negative karma thing, where it's not infrequent, where it's a common thing for them to have different types of misfortune, where they are always having bad luck or something. Things are always just not working out for them. So it's essentially because however they've lived their life, between the two of them, now that they're together, they're essentially hovering over here, right? And so when you're born, even though you have no concept of this stuff, well, now that you're in the world and, every day passes, as days pass, weeks pass, months pass, well, whoever you are literally learning firsthand everything that they're teaching you. Not only are they raising you and helping you survive, they're giving you food and water and shelter and all that, so they're giving you your basic needs to survive, but they're also teaching you. They're teaching you how to talk. They're teaching you how to walk. They're taking you out in the world and they're exposing you to different people and different situations, and you're witnessing different things. And depending on the type of people these guys run around with, well, that's going to become the type of environment that you will eventually be spending the majority of your time around. Okay? So it's over a period of days, weeks, months, and years, it's even though you don't have the mental cognition to really know what they're doing, you don't even know that what they're doing is bad. You just associate what they're doing as part of life. And so when you start mimicking them and doing the things that they're doing because they're telling you it's okay, they're just automatically pulling you this direction and you don't even know it. They're telling you lies. They're telling you things that they might be purposefully lying to you, or they might be telling you lies and they might not even know they're lying, but they have gone their entire life believing life is supposed to be lived this way, which is, racism. You can take racism out of as an example. certain people who, their parents, through their parents, through their grandparents, they were told to not like certain people of certain ethnicities or skin colors or races, whatever word you want to use. And so every time, say your grandparents, they had your parents. Your parents were born into this world, so your grandparents taught your parents everything that they believe, and your parents never questioned any of it, and everything that they were taught, it just kind of festered to an even worse state than what their grandparents had been operating from. It can go up or down. It doesn't really matter. But I'm just saying all of these bad traits are continuing to be passed on from each generation to each generation, where if you have parents who are racist or they do bad things to others, they're con men, they like to con people. They're always up to some type of plot or scheme to take advantage of others. Well, you're going to be the one learning all this stuff. And so, you're just going to, everybody together, if you're all feeding each other, eventually you guys are all just gradually going deeper down this evil path. Right? And so when that is happening, as that is happening, so before you were born, because they're on the negative thing, they're carrying, your mom's carrying around negative karmic debt, negative energy, so she essentially has a red aura. She's on the bad side, so she's got this red aura, and so does your father, right? And so when you're conceived in this world, even though you're initially at the very beginning, your very first day, you're neutral. You're smack in the middle, one way or the other. Well, if your parents, they don't believe in God, it doesn't matter if they believe in Satan or the devil or they don't. It doesn't really matter if they're disconnected from God, okay, and they're just doing bad, low energy stuff. Well, just as a consequence, just because of karma, and we reap what we sow, whatever you give out, you get back. So they're walking around with this negative, bad energy, which means when you're brought into this world within days, weeks, or months, and you start doing, adapting and adopting their teachings, eventually you inherit this red aura too, right? And where does it all originate from? Where does all the bad energy originate from? Well, remember, that's when you gotta step back in time, and you got the devil or Satan, right? So that's his color is red. The red energy, the dark side. So you say Satan. Okay. We'll say that, and then we'll use the red marker again, and just so he's got the red energy field. The only colors I have is red, green, and black. Okay, so just bear with me on my colors. So I hope that makes sense, right? So, he's the one that's originating all of this low energy, bad stuff that we see in the world. And depending on, your mom or dad, whether or not, your mom and dad and then their grandparents, wherever they've been at in their life, whatever belief systems they've had, whether they've been connected to Heavenly Father or the devil, whether knowingly or unknowingly, either way, if they've been pulled into doing just bad stuff through their life, and they do more bad stuff than they do good stuff, and they're on this side of the bar, well, you're gonna have negative consequences to that. You're gonna see a lot more arguing. You're gonna see a lot more violence. You're gonna see a lot more lying and deception and manipulation and narcissism. Just these bad behavioral traits that these individuals operate from. They just have bad behavioral traits. It's not saying that you can't change these things. All of it really comes down to your awareness. If you become aware of this stuff, and you can put aside your ego and look at your own self and look at your positive traits and your negative traits, and not from a critical perspective where you're judging yourself, but you just start looking at things that you do that are, they're not necessarily good, they're negative, it's hurtful for yourself or for others. Well, you can eventually start cutting that shit out of your life as you're able to. It's not something you do all of it all at once. All of this stuff takes steps. You can do only a little bit at a time. And then when you make these steps, you have to be consistent with whatever you're doing, whatever changes you're making. You have to be consistent with it for a while before it becomes a natural part of you. And in the process, you're going to be tempted and you're going to be tested to go back, regress and, lose the progress you've made. And that's okay, as long as you're aware of it and you're taking those steps. And then over days, weeks, and months, and years, A lot of the bad stuff that you used to do, so long as you're aware of it and you've been consciously and persistently and consistently taking the steps to correct your behavior, well, next thing you know, you can find yourself back over on this side, okay? You can find yourself back over here. And so right now, I'm going to try to wipe the red away. I'm going to wipe a few things away real quick. I'm just going to even get rid of him. Okay, I'll just get rid of this. I'll just get rid of this. That's okay. I'm just going to draw it all again, you know, so we're going to do this over here. I'll just put evil just so it stays consistent. And then you got you back here again. So let's just say, for example, a different scenario. Let's say when you were born into this world, your mom and dad, they've been living their life on this side of the fence. Your mom and dad over here, you know. Sorry, again, it's just stick figures, nothing complicated. Mom, dad. Okay? So, let's just say mom and dad, they believe in Heavenly Father. And let's say even better, not only do they believe in Heavenly Father, but they believe in Heavenly Father's Son, Jesus. Remember, these are just names that everybody's familiar with, okay? But that, you know, they're familiar with Heavenly Father and His Son, His only begotten Son, Jesus. And not only are they aware of them, but they're aware of how you're supposed to live your life as far as, you know, you're doing good things because you know it's right. You're living a life with a good moral compass. You're going out there helping people rather than bringing people down. You're out there teaching people rather than criticizing people. You know, you're doing all these positive things. And so, you know, if you are somebody and your mom and dad are good people and they have a good foundation as far as morals, they have taught you good morals on how to be respectful of not only your peers and strangers and people you encounter throughout your day, but you also respect your dog or your cat, you respect animals, and you respect your environment. It's like that's say your mom and dad teach you these things. You know, your mom and dad lived their life that way, and then when you came around and you were born, well, let's just say when you were born, your mom and dad, they've been carrying around this green energy field. You know, this green energy field. And let's just say that energy field comes from God and Jesus. And then, you know, remember the archangels and the guardian angels, all of them are included. It's one big package deal. You believe in all of them, well, you're getting all of their support, right? So I'll just draw two stick figures. Doesn't matter. But I'm just saying, God and Jesus. So, you know, say they are the ones who are offering this other energy field, right? So they got the green, which means when you're born into this world, again, you're born with a neutral, you're at neutral, but within days, weeks, months, and years, as you get older and as you develop as an infant to a toddler, to a child, to a teenager, to a young adult, and your parents are supporting you and guiding you and helping you, at the same time, they're kind of stepping back and letting you figure out things for yourself. Well, at some point, you know, you're going to get this. You're going to have this protection, okay? Which means as you're living your life, if you're taught all of this as a child, you know, say everything I'm teaching you now, say your parents are aware of all this and your parents taught you everything I'm teaching you now when you were a child. And imagine how you would live your life if you knew all this stuff, both the good and bad. You're aware of the evil and the good, and you're aware of, depending on how you choose to live your life, you can get things out of this, but you're also going to get a lot of negative shit out of it. And you can also go this way and you're going to get a lot of good stuff out of it as long as you maintain it. Okay? And so I'm saying if you're operating from this and then you start encountering, I got 4 minutes left. You start encountering, you know, you're out in the world and you're crossing paths with all different kinds of people, right? So let's just say you cross paths with a bunch of red energy people. These are bad people, and they look at you as a victim, somebody that they can target as soon as there's no witnesses around or you're in a vulnerable situation. and these guys decide that they want to jump you or try stealing something from you, and then they start closing in on you, they start closing in, and then all of a sudden, you might not even be aware of it. I'm not saying this is happening right within your visual field, right within proximity. They could be a mile away from you. They could be down the road, around the block, 5 miles away or whatever. But they're on their way to come to you and cause you ill intent, bad intent. They're going to do something bad to you. And as they're on their way, you got God and Jesus over here who are watching out for you. And then you got the guardian angels. You got guardian angels. You got your personal guardian angel. Because your parents believe in them, well, you better believe they've given you a guardian angel and they have guardian angels. And then when you're out there in the world by yourself sometimes, and you got somebody who finds you and they look at you as a victim, and somebody is on their way to do something to you, well, all of a sudden you have a guardian angel that just pops up right here. Guardian angel. And because you're one of God's children, you belong on God's family, even though you might not even know anything about this, even though you're not aware and you have no conception of what's up there, because you believe and you have faith, and your mom and dad has faith, this individual, he will step in and he could entirely just outright fucking kill them. Say, for example, they're driving towards you, they're a mile down the road, and they're planning on robbing you or doing something. All of a sudden, they get in a car accident. And the vehicle catches on fire, and they all die. Or maybe they're on their way, and one of them has a heart attack or a stroke. Therefore, they have to turn around and drive back to where they came from because one of the people in their group just fucking had a heart attack for no reason. Well, I'm saying this individual or God and Jesus themselves, they intervened because they could see one of their own children about to encounter danger or something bad. And, they can intervene. And a lot of it has to do with your belief and your faith. And if you're standing on this side of the good versus evil bar, are you standing on the right side or the evil side? Or are you standing on the good side or the evil side, It just depends on you. And, between these two choices, this power is way stronger than this power. They can send 20 people at you, and all of them, for whatever reason, they can't touch you. They might make it to you. They might even do something to you. But at the end of the day, you walk away, and whatever they tried to do, they might not have gotten away with what they tried. But at the same time, I am not saying that if you believe, death isn't a thing. I'm saying that if you believe and somebody comes for you, your guardian angel can intervene and could just thwart and stop the whole thing. But at the same time, if it's your time to go, if you've done what you needed to do here on earth, and there's bad guys after you, and it's your time to go, Heavenly Father is ready to receive you, they might tell your angel to step aside and just let them take you off the chessboard and kill you. But if you have faith, well then you pass your test, well then you might have done what you needed to do to go home. It just depends. But at the same time, if you've effed around too much and you're not carrying this green energy or something, or you got somebody up here that's carrying red energy, somebody that's doing all that, well, that's where these accidents come into equation. That's where these big life lessons come from, where people lose their children and stuff. But anyways, I'm out of time, so I will continue this on the next video, so just stay tuned, okay? Have a good one.